She was young, full of hope, and ready to begin her new life in America. As her husband was a decorated US Army sergeant, strong, respected, and charming to her, he seemed like the answer to every dream she'd ever had. But she didn't know that behind his medals and uniform was a monster. This is the true story of Jack Wayne Reeves, the soldier who promised love but delivered death. Jack Reeves had spent over 2 decades in the US Army. He was disciplined, proud, and obsessed with control. Those who served with him said he demanded perfection from everyone around him. But off duty, Jack's world was darker. His relationships always ended in anger, jealousy, and fear. He'd been married multiple times, and strangely, tragedy seemed to follow him. In 1978, his second wife, Sharon, was found dead in their home. Jack said she had taken her own life. Police accepted his story. After all, he was a respected soldier. But years later, that decision would haunt investigators. By the early 1990s, Jack was retired, lonely, and living in Texas. That's when he discovered something new: mail-order bride agencies, connecting American men to women overseas. That's where he found Emilita Villa, a kind 25-year-old woman from the Philippines. She came from a humble background. Her family had little, but they were loving and hopeful. When Jack began writing her, he said all the right things. He promised her love, comfort, and a new life in America. Her parents were proud. They believed she was marrying a man of honor. But what none of them knew was that she was walking into danger. In the year 1991, Emilita left her beloved home and everything that was familiar to her. Upon stepping off the plane in the state of Texas, she was filled with immense hope that the American dream was, indeed, finally real and within her grasp. At first, Jack treated her with kindness and patience. They got married and settled down in their new life together. Neighbors at first mistakenly said that she was a polite and somewhat reserved individual. They often smiled at her, but there was something about her eyes that seemed somewhat distant and guarded. Gradually, that radiant smile began to fade away. As time went by, Jack started to control every single move that Emilita made, what she wore, who she interacted with, even to the extent of preventing her from calling her family back home. Friends who had known Emilita before noticed a few bruises on her body. She would always tell them that she was simply brutal or clumsy. However, her eyes would often convey something else entirely, something that was far deeper and more significant than what her words could ever reveal. By the year 1994, Emilita had confided in numerous individuals, revealing her desire to leave her abusive husband, Jack. She shared this with her close pastor and close friends, explaining how she was secretly saving money to enable her to escape from her harmful situation. One of her final letters to a trusted friend contained these words: "He watches every move I make. I just don't feel safe anymore." Emilita even shared this concerning thought with one of her neighbors, threatening to say that if anything ever occurred to her, it would not be an accidental fall or collision. It was on one chilly autumn night in the month of October that she disappeared without a trace. Jack told several people that Emilita had gone away with another man. He didn't report her missing to the authorities. Instead, he continued living his life as if she had never existed. Her friends, however, were certain that she would never leave her side. They took matters into their own hands and called the police, desperately seeking answers. The detectives visited Jack's home and couldn't help but feel uneasy. They found her clothes still in the closet, along with her passport and wallet. It was as if Emilita had just vanished out of her life. Jack appeared calm and emotionless, speaking of her as if nothing had happened. He said that she was never happy at home. He didn't want anyone to understand that he was actually suffering. He said, "She left me," in a distant and detached manner, like he was talking about a stranger. This lack of empathy and vulnerability left everyone emotionally shaken. Realizing the depth of Jack's pain, the truth about the events that had occurred was finally unveiled. leaving everyone to grapple with the pain and trauma that they had experienced. Detectives didn't believe him. They dug deeper and what they found made their skin crawl. Jack Reeves had a history. His second wife's death, once thought to be suicide, suddenly looked suspicious. The bullet angle, the position of the gun, even the autopsy notes didn't make sense. Could this man have killed before? Authorities reopened Sharon's case and began comparing evidence. What they discovered would blow everything wide open. When forensics re-examined Sharon Reeves' death, they determined the shot was fired from a distance, not close range as in suicide. Jack's story unraveled. Now police had 2 women, 1 dead, 1 missing and 1 man connecting them both. But still, they had no body for Emilita until 1 year later. In October 1995, hunters near Lake Whitney discovered a gruesome discovery of human bones, crudely half-buried in a shallow grave. Forensic testing confirming the worst of the worst. The remains belonged to the once vibrant and lively woman, Emilita Villa Reeves. She had been shot once in the fearsome, devastatingly destructive head. Police now had solid evidence, and the unyielding killer was her suffering and devoted husband, Jack Reeves. A 52-year-old retired U.S. Army sergeant was finally arrested in November 1995, ending years of suspicion, unanswered questions, and quiet fear that had haunted everyone who knew him. During the trial, prosecutors painted a terrifying portrait of a man who lived behind a mask, a soldier turned husband, but underneath, a manipulative and controlling predator. They described a pattern so dark and deliberate that it shocked even the most seasoned investigators. They revealed how Jack treated his young Filipino wife, Emilita, like property, controlling her every move, isolating her from friends, and monitoring every phone call she made. And when Emilita finally found the courage to plan her escape, prosecutors argued Jack did what he had done before. He made sure she would never leave. The parallels to his past were undeniable. Years earlier, his previous wife, Sharon, had also died under suspicious circumstances, a supposed accident that now appeared to be a cold-blooded killing disguised as tragedy. Witnesses came forward describing Emilita's growing fear, her whispered plans to run away, and her desperate attempts to reach her family back in the Philippines. Friends told the court she had packed a small bag and hidden it in the closet, her secret plan to start a new life, one that Jack would never allow. Forensic experts tore apart Jack's version of events. They proved that the deaths of both Emilita and Sharon weren't accidents. At all, they were executions, carefully staged to look like misfortune. The evidence was chilling. Gunshot trajectories that didn't match suicide, bruises that told stories of struggle, and timelines that exposed a trail of lies. When the final arguments ended, the courtroom fell silent. The jury didn't hesitate. After only a few hours of deliberation, they returned with a verdict: guilty. Jack Reeves was convicted of murder, a man once respected as a soldier, now branded a killer. The judge's words were final: life in prison. And as Reeves was led away in handcuffs, expressionless, the families of Sharon and Emilita finally wept, not because justice could bring their loved ones back, but because the truth had finally spoken louder than his lies. Back in the Philippines, Emilita's family patiently awaited her return to their home. Although there were no letters or photographs to provide any leads, they were finally given the devastating news that their beloved daughter had been found deceased. Hers were the words her parents whispered as they held her close to their hearts, just before she left to help those who needed her the most. It was clear that Emilita desired nothing more than to provide love and support to those around her. Jack Reeves, the accused killer, continued to maintain his innocence, refusing to apologize for his actions. As the years passed, new evidence emerged, linking him to the crimes of 2 other women. Although he still denied any involvement, it was clear that the truth could not be ignored. Understandably, the case against Jack Reeves took on a life of its own, becoming a symbol of injustice and the struggle for truth and justice. By the time the truth was finally revealed to the public, it had become evident that justice had prevailed, and the victims were given the closure they deserved. While the story of Emilita's journey may have been one of courage and determination, it also highlighted the importance of seeking help and understanding when faced with a difficult situation.